And welcome back. We are once again doing another chat on two similar shows, and that is, again, the 50s set Lovecraft Country and them. For this segment, we got Crystal Hairston on the show. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing great today. Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be my first podcast. You know, I've thought about this a lot. I've had other people ask me to be on.
I'm pretty sure she has a few on her head.
Yeah, I've thought of many, but this is my first time kind of being recorded for other people to hear, giving my opinion on things I've watched. So
the beauty of it is anyone can do it. It's just a matter of, like, do you want to edit it? Do you,
exactly.
Is it a chore to you? Do you want... is it really all that constructive, or is it just a tireless rant? So,
yeah, I have no editing skills. So once I get on top of that, I feel like more so I'll probably start to have more of an online presence, because I don't really, I give my opinion here and there because I think it exists most in media like TV. I watch a lot of movies. I'm in a lot of horror groups. So that's, I think, where a lot of my, other than possibly political here and there, that's where my strongest opinions come from, is media.
I hear you. Groups are a good way to build creativity, and then at the same time you got to learn, when to quit certain ones, which if they're being just over the top or just ridiculous.
Yes, some groups are toxic, and it's like you need to create a safe space for people's opinions, because sometimes that opens up your mind to think other ways. You're like, okay, I didn't perceive the movie to be that way. Maybe now I'll go back and watch. You can't really tell someone that they're wrong for not liking something.
No. I was reluctant at this at first, but I saw the previews. I was really amazed by the cast. Here's how I went through the process. Is like, the trailer goes, actually I don't watch trailers, but the promos were like from J.J. Abrams and Jordan Peele. It's like, okay, I'm 50-50 on Peele. I really like Get Out. And then freaking Abrams, I'm like, he's not a filmmaker to me. He's just a homage guy. But then here's what gets me. From the creator of Underground, I was like, Misha Green. She's a great writer. And Underground was amazing in that basically it showed, again, fictional history, just the Underground Railroad. And it would, much like you see on Lovecraft, they would use modern day music to symbolize the current tone and mood that episode. Okay. It was really cool. It was like a Roots 2.0. It would be mysterious one episode, dramatic the next, and then an adventure nonstop the next one. It just, you never knew what you were in for, and just a dynamite cast. And Cerny Smollett, was once again on that one as well. And again, it's so wild. And, she grew up.
I do like Journey Smollett.
She goes from being a sitcom kid to...
Right, and now
actress.
She's in all this crazy stuff, and she's on Black Canary. Like, she's really mixing it up now with her career.
Oh yeah, Yves Bayou is a good tragic.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Era.
She's been in all the like tragic movies, and then it's like you have like Roll Bounce. That's also like a classic, but that's like one of the only feel good movies I know her to be in. She's always in something like tragic.
And who would have guessed it? She's got a pretty cool voice. Last time I had my pal Erica on here, and she had actually made time to read the book, and it was interesting. Had you read the book?
I have not read the book.
I have not either. I haven't read it. I
remember we both realized together. We were like, there are books. I was like, there are books. And I was like, huh.
So apparently Christina in the book is actually just, a man who possesses people, not the succubus type creature that she is here. Where,
Oh, I thought that was very cool, actually. I thought that idea was very cool.
And,
some things it's like, okay, so some of the effects were not executed amazingly.
Oh, yeah, they're rough in that pilot.
Yes. I will give them their credit still, because the subject matter and everything is really interesting. For the timeline, like the way that the story starts, for one, they're racing their way out of a sundown town, and I'm looking and I'm watching, and it's like I've come across other things about people talking about sundown towns, and it's like they're racing the sun almost, and that kind of starts you off already. That
was my build-in as well. I heard a NPR segment where they talked about that, and next thing you know, I had family and friends who had heard that segment, and they're like, have you seen this show? It sounds terrifying, but very historically, culturally relevant to today. And it's like, I'm going to check it out. And so lo and behold, is like that very scene they showed the cliff drum happens to be from the very first episode. And you're like, whoa.
Yeah, that's one thing. It really grabs you in a lot of those experiences. It's like, it makes me anxious too, like just watching it. And then it's like,
you want to actually like put the speed on the pedal, as you're watching. You're like, get out.
Right. And then he's like trailing behind them. And it's like, I've seen people like, they're all old now and they're talking about, back in the day, if you're going through a sundown town or whatever, and you got to be careful even buying gas, because if they gave them a bill too large, they were not getting change back. I was saying to my brother, and he didn't even know that. And I was like, you give them a 10 or 20 for something that's not $10 or $20, you're not getting your change back. So it's like, you go through the South as a Black person, you try to do business or whatever, they'll take whatever you have, leave you with nothing, you can't do anything. So it's kind of like they have to be really careful how they handle themselves. And then it's like the harassment once they got to where they were going. But I really love that was different about this show is the kind of magic and
both
paranormal
post Jim Crow laws, and at the same time kind of reflecting like for instance, our main character is a ex-Korean war veteran, and he escapes through all these comic books he reads and thinks in his mind. And then again, our main gal, she wants to kind of be a housewife, and at the same time, it's just she's also just like, what kind of trouble are you inviting me along for, boyfriend?
It's like, I could almost tell that there were books only because I felt like there was an underlying history I didn't know. Did you feel that while watching the show, that there was like stuff?
Not so much with them. I did have to look up like what, because again, there's just so many terrible things that are not outlined in school. I did have to look up the Western episode flashback in them that later played a part in the finale. And this one, I was pretty on board. I really only had to do like a little extra homework on what a Chithalu can and can't do. I knew what, the general gist of it, but, because it is a Lovecraftian thing, but I didn't know anything else. And I had seen other people being like, well, I won't see this, because, Lovecraft is a racist. It's like, no. It's not honoring him. It's just showing that
just telling the
basically
story.
They got just some of his concepts. We all know Lovecraft's a piece of work, and how he was afraid of Black people and everything. And but it is interesting too how, like you noted, it kind of much like Tales from the Crypt. I think this is just one of the more ambitious shows HBO's ever done, and I like how it invites you on this fantasy. 1 minute it's just the characters escaping from their not so precious reality, and then the next it is them going on another adventure, and it somehow relates to their ancestry. It then relates, and
I love
really,
that.
Other than the sci-fi teleporting episode, how that began, that like they should have established again what the aunt's purpose in the story, because they ignored her for like 3 more episodes and then went back to her, and I was like, that was rough. But I think it's going to take way more rewatches for everyone else. And I had many white and Black friends who just could not get into it. It was either too bizarre for them or what have you. But I think most people are going to generally like this just because there is a lot of food for thought.
Exactly. Yeah. I really love the magic and the kind of, what am I looking for? I don't want to say paranormal, but just kind of all that underlying, all those layers. Yeah. Cause it's just like, I love seeing more kind of like Black sci-fi. It's like you have you have Lovecraft, you have
Tales from the Hood
coming out. Exactly. Tales from the Hood. You have Nope coming out. And I'm just like, I love all these dynamics more to Black storytelling rather than just racism, rather than this is the battle they're facing. The battle they're facing is
it's got inequality. Some gothic undertones.
Exactly. I'm like, I like more complexity, because I was saying before, I was getting tired of watching stuff where the bad guy was inequality and racism. It's like, you want to see more complex stories. That's not the only thing Black people have to fight.
It does get pretty complex as it goes on. Like, it's so funny seeing how the police chief is really angry that he has no control over this town. And then at the same time, the lynch mob is pretty much which they go out of the picture altogether. They're so spooked by these creatures, and then it gets down to, just the other, demonic figures abusing their powers because they got other world conquering in their mind. That's just interesting.
Yeah, so many things like could bring up so many different conversations. Like, oh my God, what is her name? What is her name? What is her name? Her sister. When her sister drank the potion, it was able to become the white woman so she could work in the store that she needed to work in. I was like, oh my God.
She preyed on the nicest person ever.
Exactly.
And awakened all the stuff in her.
Right. She started being a jerk to the only Black woman that worked there because she was jealous of her because she was eyeing that position and another woman got it. So now you're going to take on this role and you're treating her just like someone would treat you. And it's like, that was like really a lot to think about. And I really loved that the transition of her changing in and out, like the flesh kind of like melting off her. And as the episodes went on, the effect got better of her becoming herself again and all the flesh coming off her until what was her name? Ruby or something like that?
Yes, Ruby. And
yep. When all that flesh comes off her and she's her again, I was like, this is crazy.
Oh, totally. And
I think that was my favorite effect.
Erica and I discussed it before. We had some pals who were wanting to watch this, but they just thought it was going to be just violent, trashy sleaze. And it's like, no, that's not the point of the show at all. It's not what it's for. And it's supposed to be very harder and just kind of, that's a thought. And it is funny how, like you say, that one, I saw so many people who were just so uncomfortable discussing those skin color topics. It's like, well, this isn't for you, but I get this. So,
fine. I think it's a good topic of conversation to open up, especially.
We're still having it. You get those prejudgments by managers who won't hire you because of whatever, however you come off. But it was, regardless of what era it is, but it's interesting how, I was always looking at recaps here and there just to, summarize my thoughts and fill in any plot holes. And get this, the episode where they're in the cave and they have to do a dastardly escape. One idiot was just comparing it to Indiana Jones. I'm like, God, it was a 10-minute sequence and you're going to compare that to all of Indiana Jones. No dice. You don't get to just compare everything. They're in a cave. It's a supernatural adventure terror show, and
different stakes.
Totally different.
With Indiana Jones, like he might get crushed by the rock or something. But
even Temple of Doom,
some jewel,
being a horror movie, that's pushing it. But
with them, it's like their bloodline's in danger because what's her name? She's trying to become immortal and all this. It's like way more bigger stakes.
At first we think she's losing her mind, then we learn about how she was gang raped and her baby was killed, and you're like, no, this is all her trauma coming front and center.
I was like, this is so graphic. I put in my notes, I was like, this is not the show to binge.
Oh no, I did have to spread it out, like do one episode a week because it'll wipe you out, and then you'll be I
took so many notes on that. Like, that's why I was like, let's do with
Lovecraft, you can binge it, and it's a matter of this just keeps getting thicker and thicker.
Yes, I binged that.
With them, it's society is dead and my humanity is crushed.
And and then it's like it's such a roller coaster. It's like them is just solid, just dark. It's very dark. It's not really any bright, shiny. It's no times where you get to breathe. It's just, but at least in Lovecraft, there's like up and down moments. There's like with Michael K. Williams' character, the uncle, when he's realizing he's coming. Yes. Oh my God. I was so
Omar's coming, but yeah.
Wow.
So I saw other people complaining about how you'll find this very laughable. Nothing got wrapped up every episode. Like, it's going to take 3 episodes before you make sense of anything.
Nothing gets wrapped up.
I don't need to rewatch it more and more to even appreciate it. I need to just know where it's going, and I generally like or don't like a season. But it's so funny how every other review was just like, when are they going to give us this answer? It just seemed whatever person they put in charge just got impatient at everything, and you're just like, why did you review this show? But for this famous website that I'm no longer going to subscribe to. But it was just so funny how then it got even more complex in that they were just, one person quoted, like 2 different reviewers were very angry at the transgender character getting killed. They're like, see, this proves this one LGBT documentary on how they're always a victim in every medium. I'm like, personally, I think it was in on the, not the joke, but in on the on that opinion. So I don't think that's fair to just act like they gratuitously killed off a transgender character. But you also got to remember that where they set this, they set it during the 50s where they would have been more vulnerable. And so, but I saw one person, they would not have it. They're like, for such a smart show, they should have done better. And it's just like,
you got to understand the era of which they are in and the likelihood of
even
all
the
this
bad
happening.
guys are victims and they don't know it. So I mean, everybody in
the
this...
likelihood of all that happening and the time, you know, minus the magic and all that other stuff that adds a whole nother layer and tone. But those people would be victims in that time. And even the people that it's just a really complex thing. But some people don't like the idea of certain groups of people being victims in media because they're like, oh, they're only glorifying that stereotype that this group of people have it harder than that group. And it's like, that's what this story is about. It's like,
and you're ready for it because of the tone is so hostile to where you are ready for any kind of shock value. And so it's like, I found it very reflecting to even think about when they introduced that, you know, the son might not even be, you know, akin to his father. He's actually technically his uncle's son.
And then they talk that they open it up for that the complex situation, the nature of the three of their relationship.
And many people don't want to talk about that. So it's like
that could have been poly because basically they survived a near-death experience together. That really binds people. That really brings people close. And she might have had a hard time feeling like she felt the same way about both of them. And maybe they didn't mind that because of how close they were after basically almost dying. You know, they almost got like battered, you know, and he didn't say anything. He was like, we were all close and you might not be your father's, you might be mine. It was just a whole question.
You're no any less of a person, but it does bring in that question. A lot of people feel, you know, unworthy when they find out something tragic about themselves to where they're like, why am I here? You know, what am I? I'm a bastard son.
Yep. And you know, that was going to stay under wraps for the time, especially.
Oh, yeah.
Because there wasn't no such thing as polyamorous. They were keeping that under wraps. They didn't know what they was, you know, they just looked at it as just like we all love each other type of thing.
That's why they said it in that period. These are the whole no tell about anything, you know.
That's why the uncle still had problems coming to terms with being gay. It was even worse back then when he was a kid. That's why he was telling that kid, like, I'm not gay. He was trying to protect himself and protect him. Because had they decided to be gay together, it might have been some sort of hate crime. They might have been killed out there. I think when they went back to him being a kid, it was like 1912. It was like some race wars or something going on. Because they were in, the 50s? Yeah, they're in the 50s. They
even said it later at an actual protest, I think around episode 6. And
because it was Emmett Till. It was Emmett Till. They were protesting. And the little girl, what's a D? Yep, the little girl. She's walking around on the street and they're protesting, going crazy about Emmett Till, what they had recently done to Emmett Till. So she was feeling fragile and she was feeling weird and emotional. And that's when she started screaming and yelling at the girls on the street and stuff. Yeah, it's just a lot of complex emotions that is kind of like, it's hard to understand even for me because I wouldn't know the climate of that time. Like, I wouldn't know how extreme it was. You know, a lot of people can't tell me how extreme that was. So it's just like, that's a whole different feeling.
1,000%. Yeah. So I, other than, again, how abrupt the outer space fantasy episode was introduced. And again, the little girl, again, imagining that she's being attacked by these two clowns, that reminded me so much the lesser moments of Us, to where I was just like, okay, where
her being chased, I will say, made more sense for the story because of the curse the cop put on her. So her being
the curse
chased
was good.
I like that more than the random outer space traveling, you know, going through different parts of her life. That's when I thought to myself, okay, this must be something that was featured and explored more in the book that I'm not, you know, understanding or connecting to.
You needed a little more build up, like
exactly.
Hey,
they
she's
needed
seeing visions or something. I don't know.
they should have made more sense of that segment. I will say that area, I was like, what is happening? Where is she? How long is she going to be there? What's going on with her daughter?
Because it is funny, like near the end when she's in like Gladiator.
Yes.
And they're taking out all these KKK members. I'm like, okay, now that's badass. But that build up beginning there, I was like, wait, hold on. Why is she in space?
I'm just confused. Why did they take? How long is she going to be there? And then when she shows up, they don't even make a whole big deal of how she got back. She just shows up dressed up, like just in the doorway.
In all fairness, they've been through weirder. They've already gone for the destroyed castle.
How did she get back? Yeah, they just brought her back. And then the whole thing with how she was using her power. Well, no, she came back and it turned her hair. Was it blue, purple? What color was her hair? It turned her hair.
Was it?
Her hair was like it was very noticeable. It was either blue or purple, I think. But yeah, when she did that whole thing and used her power.
That was kind of a nice touch because people judge on hair color nowadays. Oh, you must be gothic or, emo.
Yeah, they're crazed and insane on that street. Just think about it. In the 50s, I bet you nobody had ever done that before.
Oh, I bet they would stone anyone to death if they just assumed did not like the color of your hair. Just giving what animals and barbarians mankind has been.
They're probably gawking and pointing. But yeah, so let me think here.
So it's kind of more just, a mixture of workplace and not being accepted in a neighborhood. And Alison Pill is just, so unpredictable, especially being in movies like Vice, and she's recently on the Picard show and The Newsroom. But here, I mean, I've never seen her play such an unlikable person as
oh my gosh,
basically the Karen of the town and
Betty, right? And then there was so many layers to her, and I felt like while they're showing she's not a good person, but I feel like what they were showing you about her life wasn't like, oh, this happened to her. So
she was basically raised to be a mongrel by.
Yeah, it's like she's disturbed, but it's not like they were showing you this happened to her to excuse her being disturbed. It was like, this is what happened to her. Like, it just got worse and worse. It's just, that has a lot of foreshadowing, and it's one of those things that you watch and you realize after the fact, each family member literally had their own demon. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
The father had the tap dancing man, and he kept trying to provoke him to do violent things, like he just kept trying to, when he would show up and taunt him, he was trying to provoke violent reactions.
The kids are becoming unstable just as a result of seeing, the line between reality blur and, their pet animals have been killed. So then they're just like, whoa, I don't have anything positive in my mind.
You got the teacher for the little girl.
That's right.
And then the
teacher scarred her.
Friend, the little friend, the girl, the friend that was like telling her she was pretty or whatever, but she started to convince her that her blackness was ugly and she had to be white. And she like painted herself. And
I forgot about that. Oh my God. I was so distracted by the dad realizing he's got to literally go to the, work 12 hours while being belittled and tripped in the hallways and literally having to pout in the restroom, just like, I want to kill everybody here.
I can't imagine, like, and being in a
I've been in very unprofessional workplaces where people are literally talking shit to you and there's nothing you can do unless you want to just say fuck you and then you get fired,
So, that's wild. Like,
and especially at companies where they do staffing. Oh man. And then they're instantly going to take the employer's word over yours, even if the employer instigated it, or if other people there are literally just, I kid you not, like belittling you. Like, I had one guy who would like literally just rip one just because he knew I was in there and he spited me. I was like, dude, what is your deal?
People are terrible. Like, I can't believe people.
One person like even cut my phone cord, and I so as soon just wanted to throw that in his face. I was like, I don't know what I've done to you, and I'm not leaving. So
the American work system sucks. I need to move to a different country where they give me lots of paid work, like paid days off. But I talk about
days off would be great. But I mean, it's so I saw many who were kind of vague, but had a problem with the ending to them. They just thought, the violent confrontation, it's too much. I don't see how else it could have ended.
Exactly. With that type of build up. Yeah. So do you think a season 2 is going to come with that?
It's supposedly been confirmed. So, I mean, I'll call them on their bluff. I can't imagine them not following up. It's just a shame that Lovecraft got canceled because I'm like, while there were some rough edges in there, I think it's a just really intriguing show, and I just really just dug how, again, it took a George Romero just pulling all these various elements and putting it in it without feeling sugar-coated and mindless escapism. It really was involving and really haunted me for days at times, but I wish they would bring it back on HBO Max, at least do a fun follow-up movie or something.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I'm like the horror specialist. If you ever want to do a zombie episode or just a horror movie show episode, I recently started binging Ash and the Evil Dead. I will say it's a little rough, not storyline. Like the characters are likable. The storyline is like Ash is still great. It's just they seem to be settling into what kind of effects they're using, how much practical they want to use, and the fact they're going to have to use CGI because it's a show and they're probably shooting multiple episodes in a short time. So I'm just like, yeah, I can't wait for the budget to pick up and for the effects to get better. But yeah. But
Ash was good, a good parallel, because basically, like, we examined how, like, in all 3 seasons, they basically were a continuation of each respective movie. Like, season 1 is basically recreating the original movie with, he's in the backwoods terror and just there's one gore gag after another. And part 2 was basically re-examining what had happened at the end of part 2 with the haunted house. And then part 3 was literally kind of like Army of Darkness, where he's going on against all these other supernatural things he didn't even know were out there and making the town become his army.
People like that are like people like God, what is his name?
Bruce Campbell.
Yes, Bruce Campbell, right into my tongue. That play these characters that live on for so long. It's like they're super lucky because he can be Ash Williams forever. But also, that's like, there's so many cons to that. It's like, I'm sure he wants to do other things, like Robert Englund. Robert Englund is a great classically trained actor who's been in hundreds and hundreds of other things, many film credits. People only know him as Freddy Krueger.
Right.
Tony Todd.
Tony Todd, I think, lucked out because he's done so many Star Trek roles, and he was also in the Night of the Living Dead remake. So, I mean, I will say, it depends on the generation of people. So some people might say other things than just Candyman for Tony Todd, but they're more than likely to just say Candyman. there are, but he's lucked out in that he's had some other recurring TV roles. Like, he was great as General Juma on the 7th season of 24, where he takes over the White House. But yeah,
he has his appearances in Final Destination. I feel like younger people
helped. Some superhero voiceover roles helped, but I think he's gotten better in that. Like, he got to be in the Sean Connery, action masterpiece that is The Rock. So, I mean, I want my fucking money. But yeah.
Robert Englund gets a lot of voiceover too, because my guy is so old. He's like 72, so he's in the voice acting. He's in the new. I heard that he does a nice guest appearance, or he's supposed to be in the new season of Stranger Things somehow, some way. So I'm excited to see that. They're going to put him in a scary role. That must be annoying for him.
Was a stuntman, and then he became basically this slasher go-to guy in between henchman roles. So, I mean,
he's like now he's like a stunt coordinator because he's a little old. He's a little up there too. He used to be the go-to like pyrotechnics guy. He used to set himself on fire a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm like, how cool is that? But now they're getting up there. They're too old now.
They put a big ass number on it now, and it is interesting how everyone's just evolved throughout time. And I think these all benefited from just a very lovely cast. Like, the Them cast was just some very reliable, just New York, Georgian, and even British actors. And Lovecraft was interesting. I mean, Jonathan Majors had been in Spike Lee's The Five Bloods.
I barely recognized him, and I thought he was great. Because, to be honest with you, he has that look, like literally he could be from that time. Like, there was this thread on Twitter, and somebody.
I wish he was better used now. I mean, because he's only had kind of like been part of ensembles or bit parts. And like, no, this guy needs to raise in the star.
Shine. He can be he's going to be in the next Creed.
He's
going to be in the next. Yes, and Michael B. Jordan's directing it, and he's going to be in the next Creed.
Oh, wow.
And I think he's going to be great because he's kind of like huge as it is. And
even more stoked.
Like even bigger.
Is he going to be like the opponent or next of kin?
I think he's going to be the main guy. I don't even think Michael B. Jordan is going to be in it. I think he might be the next, I know, right? I think he's going to be the next guy.
So Creed the third, I dig it.
Yeah. But like, what was I going to say? Jonathan Majors, he like really stood out to me and I didn't recognize him from anything.
Why do you think so many people were attacking his character on either social media or in reviews? They were like, he's a selfish prick. I'm like,
oh my gosh. Okay, so
he's stubborn, but
that's not fair because he has PTSD to a degree. You can definitely
exactly tell. He was escaping from comics because all he saw anywhere was just being told where he couldn't go by authorities who were
it's
racist.
Fear. If your body is so so fear can make you feel sick almost. If your body is telling you run away, you're gonna run away.
I
don't think he was a bad person. I don't think he was a bad person. And I didn't watch. He comes back
to save her. He gets more guns. He gets more magic spells. The episode where they find that new mansion, then an episode later, it gets demolished again. And
I don't think he was selfish.
I mean, if anything, they were learning to, not get too comfortable. That's what I thought that episode represented.
They had their times where they argued and they were on different sides of the fence, but I don't really think either one of them were wrong 100% of the time. Like usually if any of them were making rash decisions, it was for the other person.
That's
but
so true.
The only time where wasn't Letty, right? Wasn't she Letty?
Yes.
Only time she was wrong is when she agreed for freaking the immunity, the for herself. Remember, she sat down with the lady, and then she tried to get something undone, or she tried to protect him or something, and she offered her immunity for herself, and she took it.
I think anyone would have made a rational judgment call like that, though.
Yeah, but no, she had the chance to save. I'm over here forgetting people's names. She had the choice to save him, the main guy, the one that's played by Jonathan Majors, and she gave her the pages. She gave the lady with the blonde hair the pages, and she gave her that immortality. And she gave her the pages, and she took it for herself. And then she told them like, "Oh, she took or I gave her the pages," and they were like, "Why would you do that?" She gave her the pages and took immortality for herself. And I was like, "That's the most selfish thing that she's done."
Probably, but I think that was just it was probably to make us think. What would we do? Would we
exactly? The thing is, I think she was easily swayed because she originally didn't go for that. She tried to use them to get her to agree to not kill him because remember, she needs his blood.
I will say, in that last episode where she almost dies, I was like, if she dies, this is all for nothing.
But she needed his blood for her immortality spell. He was her last living relative, and she needed his blood to make herself immortal. And I think Letty went with the pages to try to convince her not to do that, but she wouldn't. She was like, I can't not do it. I have to go with this spell, but I'll give you immortality.
I can understand. The fear had consumed her at that point.
Right. And I'm just like, what? But I mean, I guess what made up for it is her immortality. She fell out the window and she lived, and she was able to get to where he was at. If only they got there in time and this, the succubus girl, they were all trying to work together and stop him from bleeding out.
Do you think she had been scarred enough by the mansion destruction and even just her house being destroyed? She's like, okay, I had an invincible house. Now it's coming, crumbling down. So now I got to become invincible just to cancel out all the evil.
It was crazy. It was a lot. I think I did enjoy that more because it was more stuff to look at, like the effects. It was more to react to. It was more to feel. And then like them just kept me like in a dark place. It just kept me in a dark place, and I'm looking in between the lines and things of all this foreshadowing and the experiments. That's what I was going to mention. The experiments, they're referencing real historical things, like and the government will try to deny it now, but soldiers were experimented on according to
before Tuskegee,
Yeah, they were
actually this is after Tuskegee. So there you go.
This is after, yes. And it's crazy because Tuskegee was early 1900s, and this was in the 50s and 60s, and they were locking different races of soldiers in containment and torturing them with
they were
mustard gas.
Considered no different than, I hate to say this, animals. Yeah,
exactly. Yep. And they would use the white soldiers as a reference for the normal reaction.
Even though everyone, since then we've come across just certain genetics that, if they're not race specific, they're age specific, they're gender specific. It's just like you can't go by that predicament.
There's what was I gonna say? Proof of them doing that in every single medical field of like operating on,
and it's just so morbid. They just like to act like, let's not learn from it. I'm like, there's going to be another fascist in office who, you know, does something even more, you know, outrageous than all these other unforgivable truths about America. So,
and they try to deny it because those real people, it's like people lived with actual psychological issues and damage to their like esophagus and nasal passages from breathing in mustard gas being experimented on. But if they said that happened, they would have been discharged from the army or arrested.
Yes.
And it's just like
they did bring some good stuff into that, especially when they're having the prisoners. Is like one of the other guys in the treatment camp. He's like, you know, it was either do jail time or serve, so I'm serving. I didn't think I'd make it back alive. I kind of don't want to because I'm just dishonored one way or the other. And I thought that was interesting. What's your take on our dragon lady, you know, played by, you know, Jamie Chung?
Oh, you mean Betty?
The nurse turned Cthulhu.
Oh, and them, right?
No, in Lovecraft, remember?
Okay. Sorry. Oh, Jamie Chung. First of all, I love her. I think she's great. I love her as an actress. I think her acting was great. The succubus effects weren't.
I only know her from Samurai Girl. I don't remember in Sucker Punch. Really, I know she was an interesting casting choice because I know she kind of got in some hot water by wanting to be in like Crazy Rich Asians, and then didn't get the part. Oh,
really? I didn't even know that.
That was another hot topic.
Jaded? She felt jaded because there was a movie called Crazy Rich Asians and she wasn't in it?
It was a weird predicament. So basically, all these actors who were not Chinese tried out for that role. And, you know, she was South Korean and she kind of got called on that for being hypocritical. But then it was even weirder because, you know, Henry Golding gets the lead role and he's like part South Korean, part Chinese. So it's just like everybody was just needing to just step back and just realize. I think that was just where it was like
Jimmy O Yang, Chinese. Jimmy O Yang, he's a comedian. He's Chinese. They had Malaysian actor. They had all different types of Asian actors in that. Just all different types. But,
it's like everyone's.
There were other Asian actors they were joking though, but there were other Asian actors and comedians that were like, "Yo, like, why y'all didn't hit me up? Like Crazy Rich Asians, I should be in that." But
I even had some friends who tried out for it, and they're South Korean again, and they hate it when people whitewash it, and yet they're still trying out for it. So I was just like, guys, we're not ready to have this conversation, clearly.
I don't know what angle she could take on it to be upset, because the only angle she could take is by saying that there was no darker skinned Asian people, but she's just the same complexion as everyone else. Because if the argument was that it was whitewashed, there were many different types of Asian people, but they were all,
whitewashed in that no one can tell, a white person can't tell the difference between Japanese or Chinese. But
I mean, you can't tell if you don't care, I feel like. But I feel like I can mildly tell. I don't just look at any Asian person and just not even, because they don't all look alike. Like a Chinese person doesn't look like a Korean person, a Japanese person, Filipino person, so on, to me at least. But if you think so, then you probably just you don't get around Asian people often, or you were just raised in the area where...
Or you're the worst person in the world.
Yeah, you're raised around people like that just, say things like that they all look alike. So now you think that as well.
You're in the 60s and you're better than any of these other bastards we've just outlined in this either show. But anyway, so yeah, I think this is probably her best role to date, because like she's been in so many other like easily replaceable or just like her hated movies.
She was great in this.
Or even
I can't even remember what I saw her in. Like, I looked at her face and I immediately recognized her.
I think she was in Once Upon a Time, I think.
Oh, maybe so. Maybe. My grandmother watched that.
Yeah, she's done a lot of movies and TV, but I definitely thought Samurai Girl was a fun show. But yeah, this was interesting in that she's basically disowned by... Her character is disowned by her mom because she's like, you're a woman of the night, and then you're also...
Yeah. it's
She
weird.
doesn't
It's
know
interesting
that she's
because she's
just a
making her
solid
do that.
creature, you know? She
Yeah, it's like she has a curse on her, but her mother's making her continue to kill men because it's like, you'll be back to normal. You have to kill this many men. And it's just like, she doesn't want to, but she's being told she has to.
yeah,
But
and
then
then her
she's like,
mom belittles her even more, so she's like, I
yeah,
guess I'm gonna have to kill you. Because
right. And but then it's like, I knew she was going to push her into that. But I'm like, you're pushing her thinking that she's going to turn back to, quote, normal, whatever normal is. But what if that's just how she is now? And then you get her to that number of people and nothing happens, nothing
kind of a
changes.
good parallel for controlling parents who don't even ask their
Exactly.
kids if that's what they want or if that will work.
Or they can't accept who their kid is because that's not who they raised them to be.
Exactly. She
You know,
comes
because
from a strict background generations ago.
she doesn't even want to do that anymore. She doesn't want to lure men and kill them. She doesn't want to do it. And her mother's like, well, you have to, because you only have to kill this many more and then you'll be back to normal. And she's like, what even is normal? What if I don't change? What if I'm just like this? Or why don't you, like, what if when I become myself again, I'm basically still the same when you don't like me, or just something like that? And
I'm
just
tired
like,
of cleaning up these bodies, my
yeah, right? Aren't you tired of all this blood? What are you doing with the bodies anyway?
you
But
orgasm and then blah, gore everywhere.
yeah,
Like,
it gave me really
okay.
difficult, really like confusing feelings because I feel like her and Atticus, there we go. I feel like her and Atticus did fall in love. I feel like they had a
Yeah.
thing, but then when she turned into a succubus, he ran off.
It was a
And
good
then
hint,
he
though,
left,
because
like,
you knew she was going to kind of come back in some fashion, or they were going to hint, what was that bizarre vision he had in the first,
yeah,
opening of the pilot.
I knew immediately as soon as he was able to get away from her and he was like, what the heck is she? And, he was able to get away. I was like, they're going to bring her back somehow. She's going to show up at some point. And when she showed up, I was like, great, what's going to happen now? Because now he's with Letty and she's pregnant. So it's like, I don't feel like whatever was between them, I don't feel like she fell out of love with him. I feel like she still felt bad. And I feel like whatever feelings he had were confused because he feels like she's a monster. So he probably just, after seeing her like that, just moved on and forgot about it. But I don't think you could like unlove somebody. So I was nervous of what that would do for their relationship. I'm like, is this going to cause relationship drama, a love triangle? Yeah, like what kind of love triangle?
He does remember her. He doesn't just think of her as, some random person I slept with overseas. Like that was the first bit of action. He's like 16 at that time. Yeah, he's
still looking 35, grown man.
The camera just loves Mr. Majors. Like he's just really said so much. Just you kind of got a sense of what was on his mind. There's so other people who that just can't do that, and it's nothing against them or their ability as an actor. It's just if they're not limited, then it's just they're just not able to be framed that way. They need to be more in a room with other people interacting. But he was just interesting in that you just kind of got a sense that he could, burst into anything at any point. He could be angry. He could be distrained. He could be darkly comedic. He had that unpredictability about him. That was really
true. Good. That's a good point. And I feel like it's
Letty's same way. Journey Smollett, like she's just always looking around and just kind of enjoying the moment.
Yeah, it seems like she could cry at any time if she wanted to. You know what I mean? Like I like actors like that.
She's a really good, like
emotionally open. Like she could do anything.
Good female icon. Definitely.
That's what really caught me with Jonathan Majors. He's gonna be really big. Like I feel like Jonathan Majors, he's like 1-2 roles away from being like nominated in some of the big like male actor categories. I feel like because he has it. Like he has that range. Like you said, he feel like he could just burst into anything, and he's really believable. Like it's good to get those people that don't feel like they read it from a script, like
or they don't overuse the same people again just because of investors. Like
exactly. It's like I don't know. He has that thing about him where he just seems very much like a normal person, and he has that look to him too. Like I said, like there was like a thread on Twitter of actors that look like they could be from a different era, like literally all from civil rights movement area. Like he looks like he's from the 60s. Like
he could have been a Sidney Poitier type of that.
Yes. Era. Yeah. Yes, definitely. And he has that look. Like do you know the actress Ruth Negga?
I love her.
Yes, doesn't she look like Betty Boop or something? She looks like she's from the 60s. Like she could be like a singer from like a black and white
even
era.
Janelle Monáe for some reason. I don't know why. I feel like she could have been a pop sensation of the 80s who,
a lot of people have that look to them. but definitely Ruth Negga. Like, she looks like, when I saw her in Loving, I'm like, she looks like she could be in the 40s. Like, you could put her in the 40s.
I'm
like,
glad you brought that up, because those are good examples of other hard to talk about material that are very good movies. By
Dorothy Dandridge. Ruth Negga could be like Dorothy Dandridge or something.
Ooh.
Literally, like,
I'd
she
watch
could give her that pinup hairstyle, and she would look just like her. I could see that happen. Or
people listen to Crystal's ideas. Casting 101.
She's great for roles like that. If you want to get like her and oh my God, I forget the name. They were in this movie called Passing. Oh my God, what's the name? Passing. It's about the black woman who passed for white.
Regina Hall, I think, right?
No, not Regina Hall. It was another. Did you see the most?
Oh yes, I did. Tessa Thompson. Yes.
Tessa Thompson. There we go. Okay.
Oh my
Passing.
God. That movie scarred me.
I didn't see it.
You have to see it. It's not going to be easy to talk about. In fact, I'll just put it this way. No one knows how to talk about something like this, but it's so preciously done. And, again, it's one of the way better acclaimed movies, because you know how there's just so many other acclaimed movies that you'll watch and you'll be like, what was the point? Or take away the actor, there's nothing here. This one really did. Like, I saw it on a day, was ready for either to like, if not love, or be disappointed. But no, it really went in a totally different direction than I expected. And it's like,
wow.
I was just thinking about, it was kind of like, okay, so as a comparison, it reminded me of Boys Don't Cry.
Mm-hmm.
The Hilary Swank tragedy.
Yes.
It was that same kind of feel. It's like, okay, but see, this was carefully done. This was done by a bunch of actors, and I think it was, it's based on an actual incident, and I think they had done a play version of it. It's like, this was very articulate, and it was just very careful.
Good. I'm happy to hear it, because that's a hard thing to handle, because I read about the real story. The woman talked about it. She's an older woman now. She's a senior citizen, and she didn't find out until she was old that her mother was actually Black, but her mother was passing, and her mother would, always wear makeup, basically, because her mother was scared that someone would come in their house in the night or
and
something would happen.
And it's filmed in black and white, so I mean,
okay, so that makes it even
it's not better. Being cute. It's not trying to just emulate earlier 40s
that
movies.
Makes it more likely, because my thing was, while Ruth Negga and Tessa Thompson, beautiful women, they wouldn't have passed for back then, even though they are fair skinned. Tessa Thompson has African American features. She looks Black, even though her skin is fair. So that was my only worry, but them making it black and white, to me, makes it more believable, makes it more likely that back then they would have passed. But that was my only thing, because
they also don't play the camera. You know how you'll see a movie that's acclaimed and you're like, I just don't buy the scenario or whatever. Is like, no, they try their best to just really take their time with this, and it's just like, okay, this is going to be tragic. They're going to watch it again, but this made me think long after the credits roll. So that they did their job. Good on you.
And imagine carrying that secret. It's like passing. It's like they have to almost kind of try to build a future for their family.
They really looked like this role was eating them up as they were getting into character. So I would not be surprised if they took it to their...
like that woman said, that older woman, her mother had been putting things in place. Like, she was setting up their whole future in fear that she would get caught. She wanted them to have like money in the future, and she always had to wear makeup
like
so nobody
would catch. If you have to keep a secret
like a spy
in and out every day, be something you're not. And I mean, Lovecraft did that again, with the skin change episode. But I mean,
and the girl that was with her brother, she was pretending to be her brother. I was like, wow. Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, she was her brother too, because her brother was dead, and she was.
And I saw many homophobic remarks by either whites or Black users, and it's like, see, you guys are not ready to talk about this. You shouldn't even be watching this to begin with.
I don't like when people.
They're even worse. Like, when I go on and would just look up info on like the FBI shows, because who doesn't love a good dick woof, ass whooping, agents shooting white supremacists in the heads. I just went for endless comments of saying, oh, woke culture is alive and well. It's like, see, you are exactly the kind of people that they're mentioning on TV, and you just can't handle the truth.
Yeah, it's like whenever there's anything remotely gay in anything nowadays. They're like, see, they're forcing it.
It used to be.
It down our throats.
It sucks because it used to be that made me uncomfortable, and you didn't know what that meant. And now you're seeing more and more of it. And it's just like, dude, it's part of life.
It is. And my thing it depends on how you use it as well. While people need to get used to, people are gay. It's like that.
One of our favorite filmmakers is Joel Schumacher.
Mm-hmm. And there should be more representation, and people need to get used to that representation instead of making the representation a spectacle all the time. Every remotely gay person in anything doesn't need to be the
sneakier now. Now they're acting now they're acting like, oh, you're being preachy. I'm like, no, they're just talking about something socially relevant.
Exactly. When people are like, oh, they got to shoehorn the gay stuff in and shove it down our throats. I'm like, no, people really be gay. And sometimes it's important to put that in things, because it's likely if you have a whole group of friends, if you have a whole big school, if you have a whole office, somebody's gay in there. Okay. So they need to put somebody that's gay in there because that's realistic. That's realistic for the time. People just don't want to see gay people in things because every time they see them, they feel like it's forced now.
Well, exactly. Like it's the same. It goes back to even race, where we're also trying to. We hate it when we see a racial slur in a movie, and we want to make sure that the filmmakers are in on the joke. It's like, okay, you're illustrating this character's flaws. You're not yourself a dickhead. Echoing your persona in this work. Like
Django. People were getting mad at Quentin Tarantino. I wasn't mad at Quentin Tarantino.
He was in on the joke, although half the time, it was funny. I mean, if you're going to be mad at him, then you might as well be mad at Oliver Stone, Spike Lee, or anyone else who has heated arguments.
But look at the cast that agreed to be part of it.
We're on to Pete Quint of Good Beer Bad Movie. I'm being a stooge. That's what I'm being.
I see that. Yeah, that's all right. That's what we expect from you, Cam, for sure.
Oh well, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Pete,
backhanded compliments, it's meant with as much love as possible.
Sometimes one just needs a slap to the face to know they're doing a great job.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I am letting Pete finish up the Lovecraft Country portion. Just any closing thoughts on this insane HBO show?
Oh God, this show is it's insane. You're right, and it's so good. It's so good on so many levels, and it's going to be hard
it's so hard to describe. It has so much taboo material to even talk about.
For sure, but even just to talk about it for however long we're going to talk about it, this is something you have to chew on for a long time. Really sink your teeth into to really get all of the subtleties that are going on. This is kind of, I don't want to say it's historical fiction, but it's taking true things, real things that happen in life, and weaving some sort of weird sci-fi monster Lovecraftian thing all around it in some glorious hot dog bun of yumminess. It's so
yumminess
so
is definitely right on the money.
The acting is out of this world. The set pieces. If you haven't had a chance to see some of the makings of on HBO Max, I highly recommend it. It's really stunning.
I wanted more when it was all done, so I was like, okay, this is as good as it gets, and go to the making of.
Oh God, yeah. Oh, it's just wonderful. And
were you familiar with I'm sure everyone knows Jordan Peele. Were you familiar with the creator Misha Green's work on Underground?
I was not familiar with her work at all. And
all good.
Boy, can she write her own ticket now? I think so, and I cannot wait to see what she's got next.
Yeah, Underground was pretty much the same boat, where they basically did a Roots on steroid, where they showed the Underground Railroad and did the exact same thing here, where just like they would take a lot of stuff that's not easy to talk about, make it thrilling and adventuresome, and then very emotional, and then they would be playing modern day music and mix it in with whatever the tone or mood of that episode was, and much like Lovecraft, it would always end shockingly. It's like, this is perfect binging.
Yeah, really like I like how some contemporary creators are taking period pieces and weaving in modern music. There's a word for it. I can't think of what it is right now, but when you do it well,
it's like a nod or a parallel, I guess.
That you're onto something there, I think. But when it's done really well, it's very effective. And I think the one that really stuck out with me was when they played Lady Marmalade. Wow, that just made that whole scene so much more powerful and meaningful. Not that it wasn't on the surface great, but that music behind it just gave it another kick in the balls. Just here we are, man. Let's roll.
Totally. And like you were saying, a lot of people who were complaining about this seem to just want it all then and there. And it's like, this is not a show where you're going to get all the answers every episode. You got to go through it all and digest it. And this is what I kept looking at reviews to get a recap after each one, because it's dense. And I would see so many people like, oh, why did they do this and this? I'm like, it'll be fine. It's okay. Just wait 3 more episodes.
Yeah. I think you got, funnily enough, there is like that overarching story, and even maybe connective tissue between episodes 3 and 5 and whatever. But it's almost a monster of the week. Like the first 2 episodes are clearly, part 1 and part 2. But every other episode after that is almost like an episode of Star Trek, where it's just monster of the week. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, monster of the week. And then they just weave it all together slowly but surely to an incredible climax. I'm not sure there's better television those last 3 episodes ever.
They were very ballsy.
Oh yeah.
Like everyone else often will just do a giant spaceship battle or just exorcism and whoa and done. Tune in next year. But this was like, I don't know how anyone's going to get out of this. This was a death match.
I mean, spoilers for those who haven't seen it, but yeah,
some of them did not make it.
Not everybody made it. And
Courtney B. Vance dies after like the 4th episode, and he was kind of a drawing for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, what a great actor, but oh man. And I saw his credit for a few others. Oh, so probably a few flashbacks, because he did just lay on some heavy backstory for why he and his brother, the main character's dad, did not get along. And like,
so many layers to that onion. It's so good.
And HBO hasn't done all that much horror and fantasy. Like they've done like True Blood and Stephen King's The Outsider, but do you think this is the most creative they got since like maybe a Tales from the Crypt kind of show?
I don't know. That first couple of seasons of Game of Thrones was pretty rocking.
Oh, that's true. I did forget about that in True Blood.
That was. I think Game of Thrones gave HBO a lot of confidence to start throwing money at projects like this, and just saying, "Go for it. Here's a bag of money. Make me something great." And
I wish they could resurrect this for Max or whatever.
I don't know if it's even possible. They were talking. There was talks of a second season. After watching this, there's no way you can do a second season, and I'm halfway through the book as well, and I don't think it lends itself to a second season really, because I don't know if there's enough story there, unless you want to go not Terrifier
anthology or
like Terror, where they was that HBO, where they were on the boat in the North Pole looking for the Northwest Passage.
Oh, the AMC show, like the Terror Inside, Terror. I think you're right.
That's what it was. And then the second season was about the internment camps in World War II, where George Takei was part of it.
So AMC would literally have to give HBO an irrefusable amount of money for them.
That's what I'm saying. I thought toward the end of this, I was thinking maybe Lovecraft Country is just going to tell its original story and then just use the title Lovecraft Country and make an entirely different story that isn't part of the book, maybe not even part of this.
They did it with True Detective, so why wouldn't they do it with this?
I just keep the creative ball rolling. Let's do something totally new. American Horror Story, kind of similar to that, where each season is a story arc that has a beginning and an end.
Mm-hmm. Damn. Line of Duty. Each season, there's a new bad cop who's got to be taken down by internal affairs that's connected to the main crooked lieutenant who will never be caught, but they can at least take down the wingman. This is wild. So Erica was on here of My Horrific Life, and she mentioned one of the biggest changes was how Christina, who's a guy in here, just here she's like a succubus, and she's changing not only her gender but also just kind of a metaphor for like social justice warriors, and how there's this other imagery that's like metaphors for all other sorts of things, toxic culture or other stuff is like that. Once again, just no one can talk about with any mature mind nowadays. It's just like, unless it's like a Romero movie where it's like we can bring up anything and the right people get it. But it's what was your biggest theme and like takeaway? You're like, man, I wish I could talk about this. No one seems to be able to talk about this.
The realism, the real happenings, like the Tulsa race riots. That's something that is not easy, and I don't feel confident enough and know enough about what exactly happened and what's sparked that powder keg to have an intelligent conversation. I let it wash over me, and I read a little bit online, and it's awful. It's truly awful, and I don't feel confident enough to sit down with someone and discuss it. And I don't want to do it injustice by speaking off or not covering everything that was involved in it. That was
pretty hard to do cliff notes on it. It's like
it really is.
It's like 10 books worth on something awful.
And even now see, this is my fear about doing this show, because I'm gonna forget names, but the young boy that was murdered, Diane's friend, and they tied a tire iron to his neck and tossed him in the river or something after they beat him.
Yeah.
That really happened. That was a real person.
And then the cops start doing that on Christina, and of course she can't die.
Yeah, right.
And so here we are rooting for this villain at first, who is really no different than anybody else. Like, everybody can be a victim at every point. After a while, the police lieutenant, who's been kind of turned a blind eye, starts wondering how to get any control of his town. Like, I love how he puts his hand on her at one point, and she's like, "I'm going to call rape if you touch me." And then like, there's all these other things here. Is like again, they're in they keep going to all these privileged estates, and that no one can have. Almost all of them get demolished. It's
right.
They're in sacred ground all of a sudden, and
tearing down those walls. Yeah, that was a real thing. I also really not only did you deal with a lot of very real, very scary. I mean, this shit happened in our parents' lives, almost. And
they don't want to talk about it even. They're like, no, don't worry, son.
No,
bad people out there. I'm like,
sadly ignored and sadly not taught in schools. Like, look, this should not ever happen again. And we're doing things like putting up walls along the border. I was like, Jesus, this doesn't end. Why isn't this ending? Why haven't we learned from our past? Because I don't think the past is taught enough. And that's as far as I'm going to go with that, because I don't think, again, I can speak intelligently enough to really broach that subject. But not only did they weave all these factual historical happenings, but they also paid homage to so many franchises. I mean, we had Indiana Jones, we had the Goonies.
So you got a indie feel from the Cave Escape. That's interesting. Okay.
Oh, the Cave Escape was completely Last Crusade, a little, and the Goonies. Those were the two big ones. Last Crusade. Well, they're crossing that stupid bridge that was melting away.
Because I saw other people who kind of threw it in, but they did it in like a negative way, like it was a ripoff. Like,
I loved it. It was a.
Well, no, I'm not saying they ripped it off. I'm just saying a critic who didn't care for that episode knocked it.
That critic's an idiot, because it's exactly what the director meant. He absolutely meant for that to happen.
Their problem is they just kind of tossed it out, and I was like, what are they referencing? Are they referencing the cave? What are they referencing?
Right. When I saw that, I was like, oh, the penitent man. As I'm watching that scene,
there is kind of a monkey's paw even with when they take the book. Almost kind of got a Hellraiser vibe, but I don't know.
Oh, a little bit. Yeah, sure.
It's probably just Lovecraftian in general, but I mean, what was the other thing? I mean, I guess there's some Tremors, Gremlins moments with those creatures, but the others mentioned Tales from the Hood, which was kind of the go-to black horror movie aside from Candyman.
Okay, yeah, sure. That was definitely a comedy, though. There wasn't a whole lot of there wasn't a lot of serious moments in that.
I think they just got it mainly just because there's some crooked deputies in that one too.
Sure.
Get their comeuppance, and it's just interesting how, Michael K. Williams, he's playing a very difficult role where he's an adulterer and he's having to make up for his son and then sacrifice himself. It's like, Jesus, this show went in so many different directions. There's no time to even like stop being emotional. It's just like, keep going.
Yeah. If you don't tear up a little bit in this here and there, boy, I don't know if you got a soul. It's that
Did you
good.
think Lily was going to die? Junie Smollett's character.
Letitia. Letty. Yes.
Yeah, Letty.
Sorry, I
my
heard
bad.
you wrong.
I fucked it up.
I heard Lily. I like who? Okay.
Yeah. Letty. Yeah.
When she, like, you're talking the last episode where she falls out of the bell tower.
Yeah, like literally breaks her leg.
I gasped. I mean, my wife
was like, "Don't do it."
whole series and whack, and I went, "Oh my God, they killed her!" What? And then in the back of my head, I'm like, "No. Tick went to the future. He's got a book from his son. That really can't happen." But when she hit the ground, I gasped out loud. It was so surprising. I couldn't believe it. It hit me out of nowhere. I was like, "Wait, whoa!"
Yeah. I was like, if you kill her, what has this been for? Oh man. You can kill anyone else and they will probably do it for the better good. But if you kill her, man.
If she doesn't become a superstar after this, I don't know what Hollywood's doing.
Oh, Hollywood's dead.
She is fantastic in this, and she plays all the parts all the right way. She got
a Best Actress nom.
Strong. She damn well deserves it. Man. And I can't even cite a single poor acting job in this show at all. There isn't a single person in here. Whomever cast this show is a goddamn genius. Man.
It took me a while to realize is like the mysterious guy at the estate who's doing the mad scientist I'm like, oh my God, that's Tony Goldwyn? Like, speak of the devil.
Wow. I didn't realize that. I need to do more research on these things, huh?
I always have IMDb out. So,
right.
I had known Anna Juan Ellis. She was like the vice president recently on Designated Survivor. She's been in plenty of other things. Men of Honor. So it's like, so what one critique I noticed was I call it the Twilight Zone like moment where Ellis's character, she teleports to another dimension and gets to be a gladiator in space practically.
Oh, Hippolyta? Oh my God, when she screams, like, "I am Hippolyta!" I'm right there with you, babe. I'm screaming it with you. Oh man, that whole journey, and she even dropped a little nugget in a later episode saying that she was in that other dimension or traveling from world to world for over 200 years. So she had collected 200 years of knowledge and skills over that time that she was
It's
gone.
A lot to soak up. You're just
you're like, I want to see that show. What all did you do? I mean, you were this badass warrior queen, whatever.
That would be an idea if they can't renew it.
Shit out of a bunch of Confederate soldiers out of nowhere, and then she
do a spinoff.
Right. To see that whole journey for Hippolyta. Oh, I'm down to clown with that whole show. Bring it on.
Bring it on.
Right. What did you like? So there was some, man, the special effects here were superb. Like some of the best CG I've seen in a very long time. I think it was
Industrial Light and Magic on this.
It had to be. You've got IMDb up.
Let me see.
Yeah, right. But it is so good and so visceral. And I'm telling you, Cam, oh God, I have never seen, I don't know if I'll ever see anything like this again, but when the skin started falling off
the shredding.
Ruby, or not Ruby, Ruby, and she's transmogrifying into the white guy. I can't remember her name now. Dell, is it?
I believe so.
Yeah, so when they're changing back and forth and this skin is just dripping off of them and sliding off of their face, and underneath is their other the different skin, whether it was white or black, as it's erupting through, and skin and blood and visceral just dripping off of them and getting all over the place. Oh my God. The first time I saw that, my jaw was open. I think my wife and I were both going, "Oh dear God, this is amazing."
Yeah. That's Lovecraftian.
And then I think my favorite, like standing up and applauding, was when she and William were having sex, and they're having sex as white people, and then Ruby's potion wears off, and she, as she's climaxing,
she's horrified. Whoa, it's not what I'm screwing.
Oh no, this was at the last time they made love.
Oh, that's right.
It was purposeful. She meant to time it just right. So as she's climaxing, she's changing from Dell, this small white woman, to this voluptuous black woman. And it was, oh my God, it was uncomfortably sexy.
Don't forget the Chisalo, the nine tails,
Well, yeah, the Camino.
Camino is Jenny, like, she doesn't enjoy any of this, and she's just part of her spell that her slut shaming mom is, forcing her to just get on with. It's like,
her mom was a terrible person. My God. But they were experiencing something terrible. I mean, she married
a little ironic because she's a nurse at the day. At night she's praying.
Yeah, she's praying on
all these stupid soldiers and massage parlor guys.
Yeah, that was a very nakedy episode for sure. No one had any problems being naked. And I don't, even though there was a lot of sex and nudity in this, I never felt like it was necessarily gratuitous or exploitative.
Yeah, totally. It's not a Skinamax or even a Lesser Game of Thrones moment where you're like, okay, fast forward. It's like, it's actually all part of the scene and people are learning things about it. It's just like any good car chase where you are invested in it. It isn't like every other Die Hard Lethal Weapon sequel where you take it out, nothing changes in the momentum. It just makes the movie shorter. And it's like, there was a point in it. It's like everyone's even exploring their sexuality. And of course, Ruby in particular, it's just showing how she's such a nice soul in a terrible period. And she's the first to be preyed upon because she's a nice person.
She is a nice person. She's strong, but she happens to be nice.
And she's like from Britain, I believe, the actress. And
she's from Great Britain somewhere. Yeah,
she was on this one Jean Reno show where they were like international policemen. That was pretty cool.
Oh yeah,
it was called Joe or whatever, and it was like a loose Law and Order spinoff.
Oh, okay. Not familiar with that one.
Oh, good. It's hard to come by, but it's so awesome. Okay, 6 awesome episodes. Who's your favorite character? If you had to pick one, where you're just like, do or die. This is my go-to character. I will quote them. I will follow them.
I'm Team Letty. I am Letitia fucking Lewis. I love her character. She is my go-to. Whenever she's on the screen, I cannot take my eyes off her. And it's not because she's a pretty gal. I think she has a presence to
Lots
her.
of charisma for a former sitcom kid.
Letitia fucking Lewis, Journey Smollett. She's my new crush. Not just a boyhood crush. I'm talking, I dig this gal a lot. I think she's going places. She was just in Birds of Prey, wasn't she?
Yes, she was Black Canary.
Yeah, I was watching that going, hey, that's Letitia fucking Lewis. Am I swearing too much? I don't know.
Oh, that's fine. We're talking about an R-rated show. So
Right.
But yeah, she's been in everything.
Who's your favorite?
It'd be a tie between her and definitely Jonathan Majors and protagonist, because I've never seen anyone like this. Others brought up good points on how, some people were complaining how he didn't have much to do. It's like, well, if you're really, really paying attention to the first episode, he's suffering from PTSD.
Sure.
His pulp novels that he's been reading are now coming to life, and he's really not sure how to make any sense of it. So I thought he was interesting because he really is the natural kind of heroic instead of, like badass from hell.
Yeah, he was very human. And even though that he had his brain turned off while he was in the Marines or the Army or whatever it was, because of all the terrible things he did, once he was out of there, he was dealing with those, like you said, PTSD easily. If there's another level above that, and he's just trying to repress it. And succeeding sometimes and not succeeding other times.
Everything is alien to him. So how ironic that he imagines, again, a alien invasion takeover and he's the savior of the earth. And he's seeing how everything is basically, there's just so many endless hypocrisies to where it's like, there's just nothing. I don't feel good about even being a veteran.
Right.
I'm coming home and I got another fresh hell to deal with.
And I thought at the end, like his conversation with his mom in his dream world or whatever, when he put his head in her lap and he knew at this point that he was going to die, like that was foretold, and the writing was on the wall, and he saw that the only thing that was going to happen is that he was going to die. And he put his head on his mom's lap and said, "Mama, I don't want to die." And it was the saddest, sweetest thing ever. And
he's not an invincible guy, and guys need sympathy. We don't know how to describe when we're hurting. We are much like dogs and cats. You don't really know that they're hurting, because guys are better at repressing it until it's time to cry uncle. And him and it's just kind of cool how he puts it all together when the mansion demolishes and he sees a mysterious figure, allowing him to escape. And he's like, oh my God, that's an ancestor from 2 decades ago.
Like great.
No, four decades ago. My bad.
4 decades. Not 2 decades. Not 4 decades. We're talking
great.
Yeah. Generations.
And she enters the picture and realizes you already knew the cake is a lie, but here's why.
Right.
And he has to go for 5 more mazes.
I also really enjoyed Montrose's character.
Ooh.
How he could never, as a Black man growing up as an abused child, he's homosexual, but he can't act upon his preference, can't act upon it. So he goes and gets married and he does the right thing. And his rage comes from him repressing who he really is. Right. I thought that was a marvelous and horrifying. I mean, you want to talk about horror, having to repress who you really are, everything that is about you.
You're ready to explode because you won't be accepted by any community in this era. Yeah, blacks hated it, whites hated it.
Yeah.
It was considered an uncivil standard, and it just for him to just have to just say, well, basically I have to live a lie, and then he has to again, sacrifice himself for his son who he's been estranged for, but he will still give his life to. Is like that's ultimate heroics. And we mentioned how we could even see a bunch of homophobia in some of the user comments. It's like, Jesus, guys.
Yeah, I don't have time for people like that.
And not everything is black and white. And once again, if we're still having to talk about this, then the show is not for you. It's a pretty. Right. Again, it's talking about problems in the world that no one wants to talk about. If we're still having to talk about sexual preferences, it's like, jeez, okay.
And that's it. It didn't hold anything back. It didn't exploit anything, any race, any creed, any proclivities. It just whatever the subject was, here it is. And it's everyday life. It's our neighbors. It's our relatives. It's our coworkers. Right. These people would go through a lot of the same stuff. I don't know about the extremes of the war as Tick went through. But yeah, people you pass in the street go through shit like this all the time.
It's pretty much in the form of internet fandom, but as we see, violent incidents can happen now and again where someone can, a lynching can still be a hate crime that happens on occasion here. And especially in southern states. And so it is one of those where it's like, it's just reminding us, is like the past repeats itself. And it's even more interesting how, like, even with all this dark magic that they have to play with, it's like they're basically playing with fire. It's not like a superhero thing where, hey, now I have these powers and this is the only way I can overcome,
Yeah. Christine said something toward the end that, like, there's an infinite amount of magic in the world, there's an infinite amount of spells, and there's an infinite amount of ways you can screw them all up. So I thought that was
which is very cynical for a very powerful being.
you can't fuck any of this up, or you're gonna cause some real trouble. And well, her whole family died because of that, because of her father, was it that, or great grandfather?
Yeah,
the first
something like that.
Man, I'm having a hard time remembering all this. So much to talk about here. And
kudos to anyone who does this for some cinema class assignment and has to do a coherent essay.
Oh, this will be as big as an Encyclopedia Britannica if you're going to write an essay about it. I mean, this is
hooked on phonics times.
Right. Holy moly! But yeah, there's a couple of podcasts out there that will do a better job.
I might have to. I was tempted to do that, but see, I need to actually like see the whole finished product before I can discuss it all back to back.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They did it with The Expanse, and it's so funny with both The Expanse and Bosch. There's been like an increase in shows where you can't even watch just 2 episodes even anymore. It's like you got to basically do 4. Just put some time aside and like watch from 6 to 10 and have someone else cooking dinner, because it got really impossible. Like with some of the shows, I would say, guys, okay, if we're doing this, you better be all in, no interruptions. We better do this, 4 nights in a row, because I will forget, you will forget. And if we go later, guess what? We're all falling asleep and gonna have to repeat this, and who wants that?
Right. I also, part of the show I also loved, I mean, it's 10 episodes long. It's not a big investment. They're all at least an hour long, but they don't overstay their welcome. There isn't a single filler moment in the show. I definitely
didn't feel so. And usually there is that, even in the best episodes. There's one which is like, there is some where it's like it's an epilogue or an afterthought, and you're like, yeah, man, combine those 2 episodes to one. But
right. My biggest beef with American Horror Story is I think they've been ordered, like especially the early seasons, they ordered 22 episodes, so they had to right. So and they're all an hour long, and they just needed to pad out, and there were multiple. Like I think the second season, the one with the witches, the third season, it don't matter.
I don't know.
There was a season or 2 in there where I'm like, you know what? If we would have cut out these 5 episodes, it would still be a great, much more clean story. And I wouldn't have had to waste an extra 5 hours watching this bullshit.
Mm-hmm. That's how I was with The Sinner, where it was kind of trying to do what all the other anthology shows like American Horror and True Detective were doing. And then it got to where it's like, kind of the draw in was seeing the main actress doing a role that she'd never done before, showing that she could do some range. And it's like, it was already bad enough in like season 1 where it's like there's free extra padded on episodes. It's like, okay, I get it. The detective doesn't have a life and he's being abused technically, and he's doing an interrogation on someone who's been abused and broke out and had a violent incident and trying to figure out why she's turned violent. But you keep changing up the person. What is the point? I think we're desperate to continue it, but no one else wanted to continue it. So I mean, it is confusing.
They renewed the season and you ran out of ideas, so you had to start from scratch.
Bye, Felicia. Oh, well, you do know we're still on the air.
Which is kind of what I'm suggesting for if they do a second season of Lovecraft Country.
It could work here. It could totally work here.
Maybe not scrap everything, but man.
Hell, do an origin story.
Give me that Hippolyta.
Hippolyta.
Give me the cameo story of her 100 men.
Show the great grandparents hell.
yeah. Show me the
show the nightclub, which is like one of their few happier places, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
How they kick some of the other colorful characters out, but yeah, I mean, it's amazing how some of the best shows the studios don't want to produce because they're expensive or got low ratings. Or they just don't get it. And then there's the other ones where it's like, we watch them and we're like, yeah, but see, everyone tuned in just because that one famous star was in it. It doesn't mean it was necessarily 100%. Or at least coast, like there are some shows where they can have some weaker moments, but you still watch them even though there's moments that drive you crazy. Like there's plenty of them in Game of Thrones. There's plenty of them in Yellowstone where it's like, okay, I don't need all this B-roll at the horse races. I want to see.
Exactly.
I want to see the next moment where Dutton and his sons decide to share their strategy with the audience on how they're going to ambush this crooked lawyer or a land baron who's threatening them. I don't know. Oh, yeah. So good chat, sir. And yeah, I mean, I think it is gonna. I think you're onto something. I think it is kind of an underground kind of hit where it is kind of going to keep being. I wouldn't be surprised if you get like 10 other articles where it's to go the 10 most underrated HBO shows, and it's going to probably be in the number one on the list.
This won awards, and did it not win awards? I thought it was.
I saw some noms. I think it got some editing and awards for like even effects, obviously. But I mean, it's just so amazing how you can get awards, and usually that's the get out of jail free card if ratings aren't backing it up. It's like, but you cancel it anyway after all this.
Yeah, I don't know how this did in the ratings, but it is a strong recommendation if you can stomach this kind of thing. If
you don't want any
bodies on the
talks,
screen, strong language, homosexuality, and none of it is, well, there's some gratuitous
hate crimes, gory violence.
Crimes,
it's
racism, bigotry, intolerance, the horrors of war. War is not good. There's nothing good about war. And we saw the worst.
But America. No, just kidding. Yeah, I know.
Probably not we just scratched the surface on the worst part of the war. What we saw there when they lined up those nurses looking for.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And they just shooting random people, asking where the spy is, and just innocent people getting shot for no good reason by American soldiers trying to find the spy, trying to weed out the spy. That was, you want to talk about horrific. That's real horror, and that was hard to watch.
Yep. It has so many things where it's like, I think it also does enough escapism though to kind of rein you in to where you are kind of ready for this shocking moments. But obviously there were still going to be some people who just, if there's something unpleasant, they're just not going to invest time in it, which is unfortunate because there is a lot to grasp on. And like you say, you do feel a lot of careful planning and thought put into it all to orchestrate this series of events. But yeah, I it's definitely a show I wish, was still on the air. It should be in season 10 by now. I mean, it's really.
I just got the Blu-ray last week, and I haven't had an opportunity to crack it yet because I was. Are
there extra features?
Prepping. Yeah, there's some commentary tracks I cannot wait to look at. Yeah. I am totally. And this, I don't think I could watch this more than like once a year. This isn't something that.
Oh yeah.
I need to have. This isn't like Star Trek where I can have in the background, or Doctor Who where I just have that on all the time.
Or Deadwood or B5 where you're preparing for a big, particular month in the summer. Is like, no, this is maybe every 5 years, maybe like Oz, or I don't know.
I think I can do once a year, and I'm going to sit down. I'll turn my phone off, and it's me and Lovecraft Country, and nothing else.
It would be fun to do a watch party, but like you say, there's always going to be someone who isn't mature enough for this or is going to get spooked. So it is definitely another show. Is like the right people. It's like watching a certain kind of comedian. It's like the right people get them, but there's still going to be someone who. I mean, Ice-T, I think, said it best in like some rapper documentary from like 2006. It's like, are you listening? Or you think you're listening?
Right.
Are you just offended by what you think you're hearing, by the content? Or are you actually listening to it and you actually understand the political message and you disagree? It's tough to even gauge your audience sometimes. And I think I'm glad that this got what reception it did get, but unfortunately there's still going to be many who are just, they're going to take one look at it and be like, what the hell is this shit? What's this got to do with Lovecraft? What's this guy? Well, what?
I had a guy at work and he and I are pretty on board with what kind of movies we like. And he started watching this and he's like, this isn't anything about Lovecraft. And I'm like, just watch the show. Just watch it. Yes, it's kind of Lovecraft.
It's very abstract.
There is a Shoggoth in it. There's a Cthulhu in it, sort of. It's some kind of cosmicness going on, but if you go into it thinking it is Lovecraft, you're going to be disappointed, and that might be some folks' problem with it. But if you can't ascertain in the first 10 minutes of the first show that this really isn't about Lovecraft or his worlds,
Or if you just want gore and nothing else, then this isn't
right. You're going to miss the point altogether. So just, it's, boy, I have so much to say, and we have so little time to say it. So maybe
I'll let you give your 5-star rating. Is it a 4? Is it a 5? Is it 3.5? What is it?
I'm going to give this a full 5 stars. I don't give anything 5 stars. This is, nice. Love this top to bottom. There is
it's a 4.5 for me. I really
show that I cannot. It's all wonderful. So 4.5 for you.
Yeah, I really think it's just very powerful. It's really on full tilt, and even the quieter moments are very effective. There's always some shows where you're like, okay, that's some dead space, but I'm not rewatching that episode. And this, it really is just like you do feel it unfolding like one giant chapter, and it almost makes me wonder what would have happened had it come out in a different era. How would they have been able to?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Even like 5 years ago would have been as received as well.
Oh yeah, because I don't know. At that time the market was so oversaturated with so many shows where now everyone's basically playing catch up. They've cut the cord on the cable bill, and they're going to all the streaming stuff for stuff that they meant to see back in like 2 decades ago. I'm now every week I'm seeing someone who's saying, "Hey, I just got into the Exorcist show. Hey, I just got into Justified and Longmire." I'm like, "Oh, welcome to the club. I saw it when they were on."
I also think this show wasn't necessarily preachy. Like it didn't preach. It just was matter of fact. Like this is what's happening. This is what actually happened in America in 1955. This isn't fiction. The fiction part are the monsters, are the space travel, are the magic stuff. But what happened with how the African Americans were treated at that time, that's how it was. That's exactly how it was, and probably worse.
Totally. Is like it's hard for anyone to be a business owner. It's hard for
to own a house.
The sun. I mean, if you can't be ready for this after the opening with the sundown, rule being enacted, I mean, come on, it's just
my butt has never puckered so much in that 35-mile-an-hour car chase.
Ooh, yeah.
My cheeks were squeezed together and I was sweating my nuts off. Oh my God. And they were only going 35 miles an hour.
Yeah. They already got to slow down going over the train tracks. They barely make it to the forest. And just the way that they integrate the actual footage with the effects to show the actual sun setting and do it in a over the top way without looking cartoonish is like kudos to that. That was some careful storyboarding there. Is like, yeah, literally we got this much gap of sunlight. It's already bad enough that the deputy, had us at the stop sign and made it to where there was no chance in hell where you even had that many minutes left,
Yeah, you have to go north or whatever they had to go. You can't go any other direction.
And I've had family pals who got stopped in like places like Mississippi before, just minding their own business. And everyone's had some incidents. It's already bad enough that basically, speed traps are basically legal extortion, and people have to remind themselves is like, you got to be careful every which way. I mean, we kind of, there's kind of you kind of see some nods even to the media at times where it's like, everyone can be labeled a hero or a monster overnight, but even they don't really know exactly what happened at the various places. And I mean, we see shades of that a lot on TikTok where, we're having to combat Russian bots and just other just very negative energy, we can't have some positive moments without encountering some very hostile online behavior and having to remind everyone, hey, be professional. Don't feed the beast. This could actually get you fired from your regular day job if someone sees this unacceptable language. And especially, and if you mean it, then you got to even really work on yourself even more. Don't. I see people even funning, like doing like sarcastic remarks. I'm like, careful, you still might get censored even then,
For sure.
Even if you don't mean it, someone's going to take it out of context and be like, what is wrong with this person? And the show also is just kind of good at grasping onto, I mean, you feel all the characters living and breathing and ticking, so you never feel like they are plot devices really, like they're only as good as the monster of the week, although I would recommend it to some X-Files fans, maybe even Millennium fans, which was
oh sure,
because like, I mean, you mentioned plenty of other stuff here. Is like, it's just so rare to find a really cool crowd pleaser, which really is this deep without, like you say, overstaying its welcome or being full of itself. And I mean, yeah, I think you've spent the best words on this. It's dynamite. This really is just very emotional and thrilling and just freaky.
I feel like our difficulty with our words right now is a testament to how flipping good this show is. And if you haven't seen it and any of this sounds interesting, we're not even doing it justice.
You're right.
We're trying our damnedest to do this show justice, and I feel like I'm failing on every level except to the point of go watch this show.
1000%.
And turn your damn phone off and just watch it.
Yeah.
Turn your phone off. Turn the lights off.
That's what I even have to tell other people too. When I have my phone on, I'm not dicking around on Instagram or anything. I'm actually looking up details about the show and stuff to look for so I can rewind it in there. But there are other times where it's like, yeah, no, it needs your full concentration.
Yeah, this isn't a background show. This
can't hear the dialogue and make the images make sense.
Full attention. Oh, and put the subtitles on just in case. Oh,
yes. They're going to mutter stuff.
Now, this old guy with his bad ears always has the subtitles on anywho. But I also recommend it because every once in a while they'll throw a couple of, they're not difficult words, but they're unique. The Ori for one, a Shoggoth is another.
They'll speak another cryptic language that you'll have to.
Right. And you're like, what did you say? And you may miss something. But yeah, I watch everything with subtitles anymore.
Yeah. It's only annoying when they do opening scroll tiles and then you're like, okay, I don't need to see the executive producer. I need to see the person who's talking, but the subtitles over their face. But fortunately, this is HBO, so all the credits are at the beginning.
Right. Excellent.
Well, what do you have cooking, Pete?
Oh, what do I have cooking? Oh,
good beer, bad movie night.
By the time this is no.
Just in general, what do you got the next?
Poking the bear a little bit. I'm not sure when this episode's dropping. Halloween. Okay, so we will. By that time, we will have blown by our 5-year anniversary, which we are recording in June.
Yeah. There were some episodes from like 2016 when this show first aired. So
yeah. So we're excited about that. And Good Beer Bad Movie Night only does one episode a month. That's all the four of us can afford to get together. Family and jobs and all that bullshit.
You can't afford headaches.
But if I can plug the uniqueness of our show, we have our beer rating, our movie rating, I should say, is based on 6 beers, and it's kind of the opposite of 5-star ratings.
Yeah.
6. We rate movies on how drunk you need to be to enjoy them.
Right.
So if a movie is really bad,
how many medications do you need?
Exactly. How drunk do I need to be to enjoy this film? And it might be, if it's 6 beers, like Battle Beyond the Stars, or The Swarm. Oh God, The Swarm.
Oh man, deep hurting.
Those got 6 beers from us, but something like Machete got a 1 beer, which really means I love the hell out of that movie. So
it wrote itself. So I mean,
right. So it's a little backwards from how most people rate their movies. I think it's a little unique. We also talk extensively about beer. I'm a brewer. I'm a home brewer, so I know a little more than the average beer. Not as much as a lot of people do, but I know a little more than the average beer about beer. And it's always fun to drop a little knowledge on the folks. So if that sounds interesting to you, tune in. You can check us out on Good Beer Bad Movie Night.
It's mandatory, my peeps.
That's right. We're on the Facebooks. Our Twitter and Instagram are managed by other members of the cast, so I have no idea if they're maintained at all, quite frankly. I'm pretty active on Facebook, letting you know what stupid shit I'm watching. And a couple of dumbass movies.
Oh man, dude, I have lost track of how many times they'll make a quip and it goes over everyone's face and you're like, what? Tough crowd here.
Right.
Get laid.
You're always throwing some good polls up there too, Cam. I appreciate it.
I cannot resist. There are times where I just have to stop myself. I'm like, no, this is gonna go away well. Someone's gonna add something else that's sarcastic.
Yeah, Cam's on there. We're active too, so yeah, we'd love to see you. Drop us a line if you'd like. We've got an email somewhere. No one does email anymore, but you can private message me if you like.
In a world where there is no AOL. Oh wait, that's right, there is none.
But yeah, we'd love to hear from you. So good beer, bad movie night. Give us a listen if you will.
Please do.
Please do.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a